everybody, it's Lo and welcome back to my channel, Lo Without Limits. In this video, I'm going to share my IUD experience, so if you want to see that, then just keep watching. I've had a couple requests to do a video on my personal IUD experience, and I wanted to do it for a while, but figured I'd finally get around to it. And now it's been a few years, so I definitely have a different perspective versus if you asked me a few months after having gotten my IUD in. So I've had the Paragard IUD, which is the copper non-hormonal one, since February 2020. In high school, I started taking hormonal birth control pills, and I was on that for about 6 years. The only reason I started to come off of it is because I went on them to regulate my periods, and towards the end, they weren't doing that. And I was just starting to get a few other issues, and I really thought, well, if what I'm taking to regulate my periods isn't even doing like the main reason for me to want to have originally started taking that, then what's the point of putting my body through all of these hormones? So after 6 years, I finally came off of that, and then I wasn't using any like pill or anything for a few years until again in February 2020, I decided to start looking into IUDs just because they are a longer term birth control form and just something that is super effective, and also something that you don't have to think about versus when I was taking birth control pills. That's every single day. And for those who may not be super familiar, there are 3 different types of IUDs out there. 2 of them are hormonal, and then the one that I'm on, the Paragard IUD, is the copper non-hormonal one. So I went into wanting to get this IUD really knowing that the copper non-hormonal option is going to be the best option for me because of my past experience having been on hormonal birth control and realizing how much anxiety it was giving me and just how much it was messing with my body and my mind, that I didn't want to go through that again. But in my initial appointment with the gynecologist, all 3 again were presented to me. So those first 2 are the hormonal ones. One lasts 3 years, the other one lasts 5 years, and then the Paragard lasts 10 to 12 years. And of course, I'm going to share my experience and what I know about all of the options, but I definitely recommend talking to your doctor, figuring out what would work best for you, your body. So again, knowing how my body reacted to hormonal birth control pills, I really didn't want to go the route of the 2 hormonal ones. It's a super low dose that's constantly just happening and will slowly start to decrease as you come up on the 3 to 5 years, which is why you need it to get it replaced. But what is a bonus to those ones is that because of this constant low dose of the hormone, after a few months, you actually don't have a period. A lot of people don't have a period. Of course, that would vary. So that is something that could be beneficial for you in your situation. And also, if you do get one and don't like it, you can always get it removed and a different one put in, which isn't exactly the best situation just because the whole process isn't really fun. But that is an option had I decided to go with that one. After a few months, realized I didn't like what it was doing to my body, my mind, everything. Could have switched it out, but as I really thought about it, I just didn't want to really risk it or go through it at all. And even if it does last those full 3 to 5 years, if you don't get it immediately replaced, then you also have a few months afterwards if you've ever come off the pill like how I have. Depends again on you, like a 6-month period of just like things trying to figure out what's actually going on, because now it's just your body. It's just that whole period of like becoming normal again, and I didn't want to have to go through that when it would be time to get it out. And again, the copper one also lasts 10 years, so I've had it for nearly 3. Had I gone with the 3-year hormonal one, then come February 2023, I would need to be getting it replaced. The one downside of going the copper route is that if you already tend to have heavier periods, it will make them a little bit heavier, especially at the start. Thankfully, after this time is when I was introduced to Elix. So as my body was kind of figuring out all of that, they were a little heavier, they were a little crampier. Starting to incorporate that a few months after definitely got them back down to normal. So I think just time of your body getting used to it, plus me personally adding in Elix, which I love talking about and sharing, I think that combination has now made it normal, and I honestly don't even think about it at all. The only time I did think was earlier last month when I was getting a CT scan and they asked if I had any metal on my clothes or if I had a belly button piercing. I was like, would having a metal IUD be an issue? And they said no. And then during the surgery, they wanted to take out my metal cartilage piercing because sometimes when you like cauterize, then it can lead to like a current, and if you have a metal piercing, that area could burn. So I was like, just want to confirm with the 20th doctor and nurse that having an IUD is not a problem. So that's the only time I really thought about it, was doing a CT scan and a surgery. I was like, we're good though, we're good to go, because I don't want anything else happening. But other than that, I love that I don't have to think about it. I love that I no longer have to take a pill every single day. Again, it's really out of sight, out of mind. The only thing that was a little difficult, and of course this will also vary from person to person, was just the experience of actually getting it in. So when I first saw a gynecologist, I'd never seen this one doctor before, and I absolutely loved her. She really calmed me down. She said, because you're young, we don't need to do this one thing. I forgot what it was. And usually that's what leads to a bit more of like the pain and the more uncomfortable feeling. So she was like, we won't need to do that. It's like a 10-15 minute process. So come back next week once you make your decision and we're good to go. Because she was like, we can do it now. And I was like, I'm not mentally prepared for that. I came in to talk to you about it, not to like, all right, let's go do it now. So I ended up making another appointment with, I thought it was her when I called the appointment center. It ended up being a different gynecologist, as well as like a midwife student, or I forgot what exactly she was. But that week before, with my first meeting and talking to that original gynecologist, she showed me this little diorama of a uterus with an IUD in there. And these things are so small. First of all, your uterus is so small. I was like, is this to scale? Is this right? Because how does that bleed so much every month? What? I was shocked at how small that is. I'm like, how does something that big cause so much pain? I still don't understand. And then the little IUD in there, it's just like a little T, so tiny. So I was like, cool, awesome. And it really reassured me. That doctor was like super, super reassuring, which is why I tried to get her the following week. But the following week, when the student was going to do the procedure, she took it out of the packaging and was like, oh, it's so small. And I was like, this girl has never seen one of these before. So that made me super nervous. While I was there, they did like pap smear and all the gynecology stuff that they always do. And then the process took longer than anticipated. So again, I was told 10-15 minutes, out the door, off you go. I was there for like an hour, so I was just, the whole thing, it just started getting me super, super nervous. Now, I wouldn't say it hurt necessarily. They give you lidocaine to numb you down there inside, which afterwards I realized is like the same stuff that they use when you're getting like a mouth, whatever people do with their mouths. I've never had a cavity, so I actually have no idea. But I was like, interesting. I was just so nervous. I think I was also just super, super tense. And I left, felt fine, walked away. They say like, get up slowly, because sometimes the lidocaine and everything will like rush to your head. So got up slowly, felt fine. One thing that I do recommend if you are going to get this done is not driving. They said that you're fine to drive, you can go back to work, walk back to my car, start feeling a little crampy, but not too many problems. You know, they said you'd feel some cramps because you now have this foreign object in your body. So I start driving to work, which is maybe like 10-15 minutes away, no freeways needed. And as I'm driving, I see this like flash of blue, like I don't see anything. So I pull over into the left lane, turn onto a side street, and just like pulled over and sat there. I was just like, I have no idea what's going on. At that point, like all the pain hit, the cramps hit, super, super uncomfortable. So I emailed my bosses. I was like, hey, my doctor's appointment this morning was actually to get an IUD. Sorry it took longer than anticipated. Also, I'm not coming in anymore. Thankfully, they were both younger women, so they were like, go home, take all the time you need. Now, I really didn't plan this day well, because I had come from Austin's apartment, so that's where all of my stuff was, but I didn't have a key to get in, and I also didn't want to drive myself. So finally, after about 30 minutes, drove to work, because it was just a few blocks away at this point, and I felt safer having my car in that parking lot. I went to a cafe to get a banana because I hadn't really eaten all day, and I thought maybe this will save me. I have a big thing about bananas saving me, I suppose. And Austin had just gotten a new boss at his job, but I was like, I need to go. So he actually Ubered to me. He drove me in my car to his apartment. I got the key, watched a lot of Nathan For You, had a lot of ibuprofen, and then he Ubered back to work. So in terms of like planning the day out. Not my best work, but also because the doctors were like, yeah, you do this, you can drive, you can go to work. And at the time, this is February 2020, so like the concept of remote work wasn't in anybody's mind. But what I wish I was told, and what you should definitely do, is if you do think that you would be okay to drive and you live nearby, plan on driving yourself home. But what I really recommend is just having somebody drop you off and pick you up. Even if Austin couldn't just because of his work, like my parents, while they don't live super close, if I said, Mom, can you pick me up and drop me off here, she would have done it. And then also, like, last resort, call yourself an Uber. For about a week, you can't use any like tampon or cup, but you're gonna be bleeding a lot. So just also being prepared for that, and just like not really going anywhere because you will bleed through literally everything. Afterwards, it does kind of slowly taper off, but it is like a pretty intense cramps because again, you now have this foreign object in your body. But other than that, it ended up getting better. My only concern following it was about like 4 or 5 weeks later when I had really, really bad cramps again. I was super lightheaded because I bled so much. I just had anemic symptoms of like being super lightheaded, not feeling too well. So I actually went to the doctor just to make sure that everything was right because of the cramping. So they did an ultrasound, it looked fine, and she said that the reason I'm probably cramping is because my body thinks I'm on the period, but there's no more blood to actually do that. So that was my only concern afterwards. But now, after a few months where yes, they were heavier because again, it was the copper one, and now 3 years later, don't even think about it. And I think it's definitely worth it. And it's also something that I don't have to think about for another 7 to 9 years. If you are considering an IUD, you are on the fence, I think just weighing out your options of the 3 different types and what would work best for you, and potentially any past experiences on other forms of birth control, and kind of weighing out the pros and cons for that. Again, I'm really happy with my decision. And then also going into it, just kind of knowing that it's not a super great process. It wasn't like painful, but the cramps afterwards really sucked. It was super uncomfortable. So I think just knowing what I wish I knew ahead of time, and just like planning accordingly, and not really doing anything after, and not driving after. But overall, again, really, really happy with my experience while I still am having periods, because it isn't the hormonal one. Just being able to take care of myself, enjoy my herbs, enjoy my elix, do all of the different things that I can do to support myself. That way they aren't super crampy, since the Paragard does tend to make them a little bit worse, a little bit heavier, at least at the beginning. So that is my experience. Again, be sure to talk to your doctor if you have any personal questions about yourself and an IUD, but I hope that answers any questions that you may have. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment down below what else you want to see here on my channel, and while you're there, be sure to subscribe. I upload a new video every Wednesday. So until the next one, thanks for watching.